Coming up today, Korea confirms 23 new cases of the MERS virus, bringing the total to 87. An elderly man becomes the sixth person in Korea to die of the virus. The confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-ahn kicks off at the National Assembly. The nominee is fielding questions on a series of allegations against him, including draft dodging and receiving bumper paychecks from a local law firm. Plus, the leaders of the G7 nations urge a tough line on Russia's aggressions in Ukraine as they start their summit in Germany. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 8th of June. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. The Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, outbreak isn't showing any signs of slowing down here in Korea. 23 more cases have been confirmed overnight, bringing the total number of cases to 87. One additional death is being reported, bringing the death tally to 6. For more, we connect to Connie Kim at the News Centre. Connie, give us some details about these numbers.
Mark, the good news is that no additional infections were detected at one of the hospitals where MERS cases were diagnosed. In a press briefing this morning, the health officials from the MERS Central Response Headquarters said the virus spread will reach its peak this week and will decline afterwards. Korea's health ministry said 17 of the newly confirmed MERS cases came from the same hospital, and the 6 other MERS patients were exposed to the disease at 2 different medical facilities. Now, the male patient in his 80s who died this morning was originally hospitalized for showing symptoms of pneumonia. He started receiving treatment in an isolation ward in Daejeon when he tested MERS positive 2 days ago. With his symptoms deteriorating, he was set to be transported to a government-designated hospital this morning, but unfortunately died. Now, 10 patients of the 87 confirmed cases are reported to be in critical condition. And what's alarming is that among these new cases, we now have the first teen MERS patient. The high school student was already at the Samsung Medical Center after having brain surgery, so health officials decided not to move him to a separate quarantine facility.
And Connie, any new plans from the government to try and contain this virus?
Right, Mark. Well, the health ministry said it's conducting emergency preventive research on secondary and tertiary infected patients. Also, officials from the World Health Organization will be visiting Korea to assess the situation, but details of the trip aren't available yet. Now, no MERS infections have been detected outside hospital wards, but the government is taking extra cautionary measures. Today, a total of 1,869 elementary and preschools are closed. Gyeonggi-do Province, where the first MERS patient was confirmed, has closed more than 1,000, and Seoul has shut down nearly 170 schools. And take a look at the map right here. 6 of the hospitals where patients have been diagnosed are spread out across the nation, and there are 18 more hospitals where patients with the disease have passed through, meaning these could be possible new sites of infection. There are now more than 2,500 people in quarantine. Back to you.
Now, Korea's health minister has said sorry for the government's failure to implement stronger measures at the outset of the MERS outbreak. Moon Hyung-pyo issued the apology this morning during a special questioning session on MERS at the National Assembly. He added that while Korea's infectious disease alert level is currently at watch, which is the 3rd of 5 levels, the government could potentially raise the level to warning. The minister stressed, however, that the level will stay as it is for now, as all confirmed cases came from hospital infections and have not been reported within local communities. 8 lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri Party, main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy and Minor Justice Party will continue questioning the minister throughout this afternoon on the government's response to the outbreak. Now, Korea is only second to Saudi Arabia now in terms of the number of MERS cases, 87. So why has this rare virus spread so quickly here? Han Da-eun reports.
Saudi Arabia, where the MERS virus was first detected in 2013, reported 425 cases over 1 year. In Korea, 87 cases have been confirmed in 20 days. These numbers have many scholars and medical experts around the world wondering how one imported case could lead to so many infections in such a short time. The U.S. magazine Science Insider published an article exploring expert opinions on the super spreading of MERS in Korea. Christian Drosten, a German virologist, focused on the fact that the early phase of the disease, just after hospitalization, is the time when patients secrete the most virus. He warned if people are not careful, the virus will spread during that time. Peter Ben Mbarek, the point person on MERS at the World Health Organization, pointed to a possible lapse in infection control measures at hospitals. He questioned if Korean medics had placed tubes in patients' airways for mechanical ventilation, a procedure that could have the side effect of causing the virus to be carried in the air. Lee Jong-gu, director at the Center for Global Medicine of Seoul National University, also blamed poor ventilation facilities at hospitals where the first patient was treated for days. The Korean government on Sunday released the list of hospitals where MERS cases have been reported so far. The late availability of this information, in addition to the weak initial containment response, has left citizens feeling panicky and skeptical of health officials. 한다은, Arirang News.
Now, in the rest of the day's news, the confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-ahn has kicked off at the National Assembly. The lawmakers from the Assembly's Special Committee on Confirmation Hearings are questioning Hwang about a series of allegations, including dodging the military draft, receiving a hefty paycheck at a local law firm, and religious bias. Regarding the mandatory military service, the nominee said he was exempted due to a skin disease. Hwang, who's also the nation's current justice minister, said he would resign from his current post if he fails to pass the grueling confirmation hearing process. The hearing will continue until Wednesday. Prosecutors will summon a ruling party official for questioning on this Monday over suspicions of receiving illegal political funds from late businessman Sung Wan-jong. Saenuri Party lawmaker Hong Moon-jong is the third person of 8 politicians to be physically summoned following former Prime Minister Lee Wang-gu and Gyeongsangnam-do Governor Hong Jun-pyo, whose names appeared on this so-called bribery list. Sung, who committed suicide in April, told a local newspaper before his death that he gave 200 million won, or roughly $180,000 in illicit political funds in 2012 to the Saenuri lawmaker Hong, who was then serving as the chief of President Park Geun-hye's election camp. World leaders holding talks in Germany say they will push to maintain economic sanctions on Russia until a peace plan for Ukraine is fully implemented. The agenda for the 2-day G7 summit also includes tackling violent extremism and climate change. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Sharing a toast over Bavarian beer and sausages, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and U.S. President Barack Obama held private talks on Sunday. With the two countries facing the task of countering Russian aggression, Merkel stressed their strong alliance.
The United States and Germany share the same values and are closely cooperating for mutual benefits.
The White House said the two leaders agreed that the duration of the sanctions on Moscow should be clearly linked to Russia's full implementation of the Minsk agreements, referring to the ceasefire deal reached in February during talks in Minsk, Belarus. President Obama said discussions on Russia will continue.
Forging new trade partnerships across the Atlantic, standing up to Russian aggression in Ukraine, combating threats from violent extremism to climate change.
Ahead of the 2-day summit, leaders from Canada and Japan visited Ukraine to pledge their support. The European Union also vowed to join efforts to counter Russian aggression.
Given the current situation, if anyone wants to start a debate about changing the sanctions regime, the discussion could only be about strengthening it.
Russia has been excluded from the G7 summit for the second year for backing Ukrainian separatists. Members include leaders from the US, Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. As the talks got underway, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets to protest the G7 meeting. Fearing further violence, German authorities dispatched some 20,000 police officers to minimize disruptions. Hwang Kyo-ahn, Arirang News.
Now, FIFA President Sepp Blatter is being drawn further into the widening corruption scandal engulfing his organisation. South Africa's Sunday Times reports that Blatter and then South African President Thabo Mbeki held discussions over $10 million that ultimately went to allegedly corrupt football executives as payback for supporting the country's successful 2010 World Cup bid. The paper says a 2007 email from FIFA Secretary-General Jerome Valcke to the South African government asks when the money will be transferred. Now, FIFA has yet to respond to this report, but the South African government denies any kickbacks were given to FIFA officials. Blatter announced he was stepping down as FIFA president last week, with the world football body rocked by the biggest scandal in its over 1 century-long history. A Japanese journalist has released a tear-jerking film that documents the lives of 7 Korean victims of Japan's wartime sex slavery. Shot in the mid-1990s, all of the women have since passed on, but the filmmaker hopes his documentary goes a small way to help them get what they so desperately wanted, an apology. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Kang Deok-young was in first grade when she was taken by Japanese troops in 1929 to work at a factory. She tried to escape, but was captured soon after and sent to a military brothel. On her way home, after Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule in 1945, she found out she was pregnant. But unfortunately, her child died of an illness at a child care facility. Kang then lived a long, lonely life and died in 1997. Her life and suffering will be remembered, though, as Japanese journalist Toshikuni Doi has released a documentary portraying her life and the lives of 6 other so-called comfort women. He followed a woman to document her struggles for over 2 years, between December 1994 and January 1997. All 7 women have since passed away. The film titled Live with the Memory, The Life of Comfort Woman Kang Deok-young, is over 3 hours and 30 minutes long, but it sends out a powerful message.
If I didn't make this movie, the victims' voices would not have been heard.
Doi was hesitant to release the documentary at first, but Osaka Mayor Toru Hashimoto's comments in 2013 that the comfort woman system was necessary stiffened his determination to release the film.
A true patriot should not just amplify what his country does well, he should also recognize its wrongdoings.
Those Japanese who saw the film are urging their government to repent.
After watching this documentary, I believe my government should compensate the victims.
Despite growing pressure to bring some closure to the victims' suffering, the Abe administration in Japan remains tight-lipped on the issue. Only 52 Korean victims of Japan's wartime sex slavery are still alive. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea's economy could post a growth rate of up to 3.5% this year by implementing financial and monetary policies, but needs fundamental structural reform in order to achieve such a level. This is according to Lee Chang-yong, who is director of the Asia and Pacific Department at the International Monetary Fund. Speaking at a forum in New York, Lee added the IMF currently forecasts Korea's growth outlook for this year at 3.1%, citing the tough situation the economy is facing. In regards to the MERS outbreak, he said it was too early to assess the impact of the virus on the economy, but predicted it will affect recovery momentum. Municipal governments in Korea plan to raise public transportation and utility fees this year. In the capital, the Seoul city government wants to raise bus and subway fares by 150 and 200 won respectively. That's a hike of around 13 to 18 cents per trip. Water utility bills in Ansan, Gyeonggi-do Province and Donghae, Gangwon-do Province will rise by an average of 10%. Residence tax in Namyangju, Gyeonggi-do province, will nearly double to 7,000 won, that's $6.30, and will do so in August. A Namyangju city official says the rise is necessary to secure finances to improve residents' welfare and safety. Korea's National Pension Fund has upped its stake in Samsung C&T 2 days after a US-based hedge fund declared war against the unit's proposed merger with another Samsung affiliate, JL Industries. According to data released on Monday, the National Pension Service bought $27 million worth of Samsung C&T shares on Thursday and $70 million worth the next day, raising the largest shareholder's stake to nearly 10%. The move is drawing attention to the MPS's stance during an upcoming vote on the offer. In a letter sent to shareholders last week, the hedge fund, Elliott, asked for their corporation to oppose the deal and to demand dividends in the form of equities. Now, last November, the MPS blocked a planned merger between Samsung Heavy Industries and Samsung Engineering by demanding the companies buy back its shares. However, analysts say JL and Samsung C&T shares have surged since the merger was announced, meaning shareholders have little motivation to go against the plan. Well, those have been the stories we've been following on this Monday lunchtime here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news, and do download our smartphone application. Just search for Arirang TV. Goodbye.